Right, let's go. I don't know how much battery I have. I don't know how much memory I have. I don't know how much memory I have. Let's do it. Hello, welcome to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and today I'm bringing you another chatty monthly reading wrap up. Yeah, we're gonna sit, I have a cup of tea. In case you're wondering, it's bonfire toffee tea and it is amazing and it has oat milk and it is amazing. I don't know why you would care, but there you go. I read 29 books total in July, which is pretty damn impressive. I mean, to go from what, 33 last month to 29 this month, pretty good. There were some short books in here, there's a fair few audiobooks, it was a lot of mood reading, but I did manage to finish my TBR, so hello me from my TBR video, you actually don't need to read 3 of those books. I like the idea that I would suddenly have amnesia and I'd be like, what do I need to read this month? Apparently, according to Goodreads, the first book I finished in July was The Poppy War. Now, I picked up The Poppy War on audiobook because I knew I would be reading The Burning God in July and I wanted to reread. And I did actually manage to finish The Poppy War, The Dragon Republic and The Burning God this month, so I'm going to talk about them all in one. The only one I have that I can hold up for you is this art copy of The Dragon Republic from last year. But I'm not going to hold it up because that's a bit of an arm workout. I had a good time rereading these actually. I did The Poppy War by audiobook, I did Dragon Republic in its physical form, and I did The Burning God via e-arc, so we've got every format you could possibly have it in. And I don't know whether that had any bearing on how it went, to be honest, because I enjoyed the Dragon Republic most of all 3 of them, interestingly. I would have thought The Poppy War would have it because it has that structure that I enjoy, but Dragon Republic had the emotions and the character development and all of the good stuff, and I think Rin is she has her biggest highs and some of her lowest lows in the Dragon Republic, so I liked it most. I don't know whether to film a dedicated review for The Burning God like I did for Empire of Gold, having not reviewed the other 2. I think partly because I didn't take in as much of The Burning God as I did the Empire of Gold, and I don't know if that's to do with how quickly I read it. But having said that, I read Empire of Gold in a day, so I don't know. Let me know if you would like to hear my thoughts on that. It may be that thing if I have to write the review and then from that pull out the stuff for the video. That might be what I need to do. I think that's our way to do this for today, actually. Yes, the Poppy War trilogy. Well worth reading. Absolutely read it. And The Burning God has some really good stuff in it. I think the ending will be not divisive in the sense of some people are going to be like, this is terrible, cancelled, cancelled. I think just in terms of it won't be what everyone wants. And I think I was spoiled by the Empire of Gold in that I basically got exactly the ending that I wanted. And I don't know why I assumed that would happen with this trilogy that has done nothing but break my heart since the beginning. But would I recommend reading all 3 of them? Absolutely. And if you've read them before and you want to read The Burning God, 100%, no ifs, ands or buts, reread. And I would actually say if you are not the kind of person who takes in names and spellings of names very easily, I do that. I don't do it very well. Don't do all of them by audiobook if you're then going to read the 3rd one. Do all of them in the same either written or listening format. You know what I mean? That's everything I wanted to say on those. So those were actually spilled out throughout the month, but talking about series in order seems like a sensible idea. And speaking of which, would it have been in July? I think it must have been right at the end of June. We went and had a socially distanced time with Asher and Justine and various spooses. Justine was very kind enough to lend me all of the Murderbot Diaries novellas. Sorry if the kettle is on in the background now, Katie's making a tea. These are not in the right order. All Systems Red is definitely the first one, and then I'm not sure what order these go in, but Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, Exit Strategy, oh, they make such a horrible noise. I don't read a huge amount of sci-fi. That which I do read and enjoy tends to be the kind of Becky Chambersy stuff, which I think Murderbot does a little. Basically, to get to the point, because otherwise we will be sat here all day, and while you all quite happily watched a 30-minute wrap-up last month, you might not watch that again. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't completely mad about it, but I think that might be because I had too high expectations based off how people in my life have enjoyed it. Is that enough? I think the 2nd and 3rd ones were my favourites. The 3rd one made me genuinely very sad at points in a good kind of this book is well written way. Maybe on a reread they would be better now that I know what to expect, because I think I was expecting more. I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know. Books are hard. she says on her channel where she talks about books. I did read all of them and I did have a good time doing it. I finished Hero at the Fall by Alan Hamilton, and I couldn't remember reading this just now because I had it on audiobook. I was going through my library's ebook service and they happened to have Hero at the Fall, and then I had Sunstroke from the day in the park, so I picked this up. Yes. I read this when it first came out, like this was my pre-order copy, and I remember enjoying it hugely, having a great time. I haven't read this series since then, and I think this would have come out in 2017? Oh, 2018, okay. I haven't read it since then. I think it would have been better if I'd gone back and read the previous two. It's not too hard to pick it back up again. It's YA, you kind of know what the character beats are doing, but I still had a good time. I thought the audiobook was good. I wasn't as obsessed with the narrator as I have been for other things, even though I think it was the same narrator who did this as did Kingdom of Copper. I said Kingdom of Copper, I meant City of Brass and that whole series. But yeah, I wasn't as into this as I wanted to be. I think this was the point in the month where I was feeling really burned out from my book a day challenge from last month, and just anything I think I would have felt fairly about. Case in point, Murderbot Diaries. It's good, like, Jin, Powers stuff. I want to reread the whole series. It's that trilogy problem of you need to have fallen in love with the characters to fully go through the arc with them, and picking up just the final book when you can't quite remember what happened in the first two, not the best plan. Carrying on with that audiobook kind of train, I listened to a lot of audiobooks this month. I'll say that from the off. I listened to, it was a dramatisation, but it was marked as an audiobook, so I'm counting it, of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, which I'd wanted to read for a very long time, and I still do want to read the actual book, or listen to a non-dramatised version, because I think it would be really interesting and it's a important piece of literature, I guess. But I enjoyed the story and I thought it was well done. I now know the story. I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to know what the story was because all I knew about it was book burning. I didn't know anything else about it, and now I do. If at some point a copy of the book happens to cross my path, I will pick it up, but it is good to have it ticked off my mental, these are books I would like to one day have read. Next, first arc of the month, I finished H.G. Perry's A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians. I've said that title wrong every time and now I can't remember which one is actually wrong. Anyway, that one. This one was an interesting adventure. It took a long time to read. I ended up enjoying reading it. It is a well-written story. I think it is... problematic is a loaded word. I think there are bits of it that I love to hear own voices' perspectives on. So we're in an alternate world where magic is possible, but we're also in the Age of Enlightenment, 17th to 19th century, so the book focuses on three areas. There's the Haitian Revolution, there's Robespierre in France and the French Revolution, and William Wilberforce in England and the abolition of the slave trade in England. All the things are quite difficult to write anyway if you are not a person of colour in those communities affected by the slave trade in those three places. But when you add a fantasy element on top of it, I think it just makes it more complicated. And overall I think it's a well-written story, but have the stories been told enough in a non-fantastical setting that we're now able to confidently turn them to fantasy with everyone still understanding the original stuff behind it, I think is where I come from, and I don't know that they have been. So yes, not sure about that one. I'll be interested to hear more reviews about it at some point, but it's such a shame because I loved The Unlikely Escape of Uriah Heep unabashedly, and I think I will still love that book, but I'm not going to be rushing out and buying a copy of this one. Moving onto something that I did love unabashedly, it's Mayday by Josie Jaffrey. Usual disclaimer, I know Josie personally, but this is such good fun. I don't read really any paranormal stuff. It's not my jam. Urban fantasy, again, not my jam. This kind of, it's in a real city. I'm not that fussed. I don't typically read things with vampires, but Josie's books are my exception. I'm just shading myself from the non-existent sun. Josie's books are my exception. This is so much fun. This is set in the same universe as her other vampire books, if you love them already, or if you want to just throw yourself into a world that spans decades, centuries even. I really enjoyed this. Bisexual, vampire detective, snarky, love triangle, question mark, murder mystery. It's like everything I wanted. It's like if you took all those good Oxford detective programmes and you just went, yeah, but what if it was gayer and angstier? And yeah, this is the product, and it's really, really good. I had a hugely good time reading this. I thought it was fabulous. I I need book 2 immediately. This was definitely for me, and I'm excited for more from Josie in this world and this series. Next, I read Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. This has a full dedicated review up on my channel now. You can go and watch it. It has a beautiful rainbow in the corner. I can't remember which corner has the doobly-doobs, but it will be in that corner. But let me just say, I really, really loved this book. I thought it was great YA fairy tale dystopian, which is a genre that I did not know I needed, but I need it for everything now. I would happily read 100 more books set in this kind of post-fairy tale world. I think it's really interesting. But yeah, it's sapphic, it's wonderful, it's so good. Just go watch my review. You will have a great time. In fact, pause this video, go watch that review, consider it part of this wrap-up, and then come back. I don't know why I assume you have 45 minutes free. And then from a big high onto a less great book, I read American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and I was hugely disappointed by it. Worth saying, I was reading the new version. I don't know when it switched and if any copies of the old version are still out there. I'm not sure what the publishing journey has been for that book, and I don't really care to find out. So yeah, big book. I don't have it anymore because I took it to the book bank because I didn't want it in my life anymore. I don't like the way that Neil Gaiman, certainly in these books, which were 2005 or before, I don't like the way Neil Gaiman writes women. I don't necessarily think it's like, oh, how heinous, he has them just in boob armour walking around, but I don't relate to any of the characters, and I just don't think the female characters are very enjoyable. They tend to be very archetypal and kind of boring, and I need that to enjoy a book. I just do. I need well-written women to enjoy a book. I wasn't overly fussed about the main character. The plot felt complicated, which I know some people really love, and you could see what he was trying to do. This just wasn't my cup of tea. I don't want to talk about American Gods anymore. Can we put it behind us and move on with our lives? Thank you. So then another audiobook finished. I finished The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan, which is the first book in the Carter and Sadie Kane series, which is the one where it's gods are real, but it's the Egyptian ones. And to be honest, my knowledge of Egyptian mythology beyond, well, probably Ra is the god of the sun, is very limited. So I'm wondering if that was why I didn't engage with this quite as much as I engaged with the Greek mythology ones, which I knew back to front, so I picked up a lot more of the references, and I'm wondering if you were an Egyptian mythology nerd kid, you would enjoy them a bit more. I did have a good time with it. I thought the plot was interesting. Obviously, I don't know what the order of publishing was, but as soon as you got out of Percy Jackson, really, things began to get quite formulaic in how it worked, in that there's and we meet this character and they're probably going to betray them at some point, and oh look, they did the thing, and yeah. I don't want to spoil it for you in case you want to read these. I'd say worth reading, and every library in the world probably has them, so do them that way rather than buying them for yourself unless you're a collector of that series. I did think that Carter and Sadie were really good characters, and I liked them very much. Sadie in particular I thought was fab, but I'm not desperate now to read the rest of the books. I still think I need to go back and read the Roman ones, because I actually studied Roman history and archaeology much more than I did Greek. So maybe that will be interesting. I'm losing my voice. I'm just so passionate about mythology. Next I finished, it was a marathon to do so, but I finished Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. I enjoyed this pretty well. I think now, thinking back on it as a whole, I did really enjoy the plot, the characters. They had some of my favourite things that happen in it. It was certainly gay enough. All of that good stuff was there. Actually reading it was not that much of an enjoyable experience, and I think it was down to the format. I think it was partly because the formatting on the e-arc was terrible, which I can't hold against the book, but does affect your reading experience, which affects your opinion of the book. But also, it's a much longer book than I thought it was going to be, and I think if you had a physical copy, you'd be able to sense how much of the book you had left, whereas I constantly felt like I was just like reading and reading and reading, and then you'd look and it'd be like 2% more than last time, which is very frustrating. So yes, all that stuff I always say about the circumstances in which you read affect your reading and affect your opinion of the book, but now thinking back on it, the actual book was good. I had a good time with it. Oh, this is the problem with chatty wrap-ups, I don't have notes. Feminism, space, bunch of women join a revolution. It's good fun. It's like a good romp that has some very good emotional moments. It felt like something that people are really gonna love. Next, I finished Phoenix Extravagant, and if I get this video up, I'm not sure of the scheduling. Basically, I have a Phoenix Extravagant review that is coming out on the Monday after I'm filming this. So I'm filming this on a Saturday. So I think by the time I get this edited and up, either it will be coming out tomorrow or it will already be up. So if it is out in any way, shape or form, I will link you to it. I loved Phoenix Extravagant so much. I think my only problem with it was it's too short and I wanted more of it. It's so good. The historical context of it is so amazing. Go read Phoenix Extravagant, but also watch my review. It's spoiler free. Do the thing. Next, I finished Alex E. Harrow's The Once and Future Witches, which again, I really enjoyed. I have another dedicated review coming out for this, but that's not out till next week, next Monday. So all I will say about it now for the wrap up is it is good witchiness. It's inclusive witchiness, which I liked, and I thought the story had a really good rise and fall and catharsis, and the actual like storytelling of it is really good. Which isn't something I say for a lot of books, like the actual flow of everything felt really good. Yeah, I would actually really recommend it. I think it's good fun. And from a high to a low, I read Calamity, and I talked about this in my vlog, but I really didn't like this. I thought this was such a waste of the end of a trilogy. The end of a trilogy, especially a Brandon Sanderson one, I expect to be really clever and really twisty-turny and just good stuff, and this was kind of just more of the same and less interesting of a setting. It's set in, so the first one, you have a city made of steel. The second one is like underwater New York, which is pretty cool, and this one is just like, it's a salt city, but you don't really get to explore what that means, and you don't get as much of kind of like what the people who live here are like in the same way as you do get in the other books. So yeah, it was just felt like a kind of waste of time. I didn't like David as a character, so I don't know what I was expecting. Was I thinking I would care about him suddenly in book 3? Not really. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of I'm probably going to unhaul this series at the end of the year, I think. Probably. I liked Steelheart. Steelheart was a good book. This is not living up to that. If a series is meant to get better as it goes along, this series did not achieve that. Another audiobook. I told you, I smashed it this month. I listened to It's Not Okay to Feel Blue and Other Lies, which is a collection of essays on mental health. And I thought it was pretty good. I don't have a huge amount to say on this. I don't read a lot of, like, self-improvement, I guess, books. I think it would be a book that if you wanted to read it or buy it for someone else, then you would just have it in your house and dip in and out, whereas I listen to it all in one go on an audiobook format, and I don't think that that's necessarily the best way, although it is quite nice because some of the people who wrote the things in the book then recorded their audio, but not all of them. If you're interested in it, seek it out. If not, you're not missing out if you don't read it, unless you have zero knowledge of any mental health awareness at all. Then I finished Daisy Jones and the Six, which was on my TBR, even though in my brain I seem to think it wasn't. It was. I adored Daisy Jones and the Six. I thought it was so amazing. I read most of it quite late at night, and it was just one of those books where I did not want to stop flicking the page. It was so good. It's told as, it feels like the transcript of a documentary. It's not. It's a transcript of interviews, and apparently the audiobook is recorded with a full cast, so we'll be seeking that out as soon as I can. About the history of this band that made one amazing album and then broke up. And it's just, it's so real, so realistic, very human, just fantastic. Absolutely, go and read it. The hype is real. Go and read Daisy Jones and the Six. More audiobooks. I listened to Uglies and Pretties by Scott Westerfeld, and this was just a nostalgic, I think Uglies was in the library and Pretties was Scribd, and I just sort of went, why not? And listened to them. Uglies holds up. It's pretty good still. It's like a nostalgic, interesting time, tapping into the mindset I had at like 11, where I was like, I just want to be beautiful. Somebody make these decisions for me. Pretties I liked less so, partly because it used the R slur, which just like, I don't know if Uglies had been redone to take it out, and I just had a new version of older version of Pretties. Not sure. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, could have done without that, and also the story is a bit I think I thought there was more to it than there is, but it's a very quick ending. I'm probably going to do specials because that's the one I don't think I actually read. So that will be exciting, finding out how the trilogy ends after 12 years or whatever it's been. Nostalgic YA time. A part of me wants to go back and reread / read for the first time all of the kind of like around the same time as Hunger Games was coming out, and also do Hunger Games at the same time, those like YA dystopian things that nobody talks about anymore, like Uglies, is it Delirium? Where love is banned, where it's like the same plot, and maybe like crowdsource some more. I think that would be really fun, because I think YA as a genre has come on so far from then, and it's entertaining to look back, and it's interesting to look back. Let me know in the comments if you would like that series. I say knowing full well that I started filming an Animorphs series and I've made 8 videos in a year. After that I finished The Mask of Troy by David Gibbons. I don't recommend this unless you're really into like airport fiction. This is the kind of book where you buy it in an airport, you take it to your holiday home or wherever you're staying, and then you leave it there, which is unsurprisingly where I bought it from, was the back of a church in an area with a lot of holiday homes. Archaeology, wish fulfillment, pretend to be Indiana Jones. Pretty boring plot because it takes out all of the fun of Indiana Jones and just puts in loads of archaeological detail about Troy. Neft. Goodbye! I can now get the book out of my life. Another audiobook. I know! I haven't counted how many there were. There were too many audiobooks. I listened to Seraphina by Rachel Hartman, which I've been talking about a lot lately. I hadn't read it in years. I really love Seraphina. I think it's really good. It's not going to be for everyone. It's quite a religion-focused book, I think, which won't appeal to all, but as somebody with a background in a lot of religion, I find it quite interesting. Dragons, it's some cool stuff. It's kind of a murder mystery. There's a handsome prince, like, it's good stuff. I need to listen to Shadowskull because they're very, very different books, and that's quite cool, I think. I think Seraphina's in my weirdest books video, but I now feel like I can talk about it with a bit more insight. I loved it. I loved it. It was a good time. We're getting on to the last few books of the month. I read Fly By Night by Frances Hardinge. I liked this a lot less than the first time I read it, but the first time I read it I was much more focused, so I think that was why. But I still thought this was really good fun. Mosca is still a really good character. I definitely need to pick up the sequel. I love Frances Hardinge's writing. I love her world building. I love the way her mind works. This just isn't my favourite of her books. Menacing Goose. Then I finished A Nancy Boys by Neil Gaiman, which I probably should have talked about when I talked about American Gods, because these are kind of a series, companion books. I liked this more than I liked American Gods. It is still in my home. It is still on my shelf. I still think that the women are kind of bleh in this. Like, what? None of them... yeah, no. That's all I can say. But I liked the plot a lot more in this one. I thought that was really interesting. I liked the character dynamic. There are fewer characters, which helps. It's much shorter, which helps. Yeah, I had a pretty good time with this. It read much faster than I thought it was going to. Again, probably because I was remembering American Gods and how much I had to power through that. Pretty good. Wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you have to read A Nancy Boys, in the same way as I would probably say Neverwhere is a really good read. Now we're getting on to books I've just read this week. I was determined. I had 3 rereads left on my TBR and I was like, I can do that. I can make that happen. So first I read The Graces by Laura Eve. This was a reread. I liked this a lot the second time around. I've talked about it in my vlog, which will also probably be up by the time this is up. This is a really good take on what it feels like to really want to be friends with the popular kids at school. I think that's the main kind of theme of this book, along with some really good, somewhat spooky stuff. You have to read this book and find out for yourself. It's one of those books you just need to go in with as little knowledge as possible and just give it a read, but I recommend. Then I finished V.E. Schwab's Our Dark Duet. This one, I'd say if you're planning on rereading this series, I have not reread it since 2017. Probably do them in order. I would say now. It took me a while to get back into this world and remember who was who and what was happening, and it's a duology. Just read the first one, don't be me. But I did think it was pretty good. I remember the ending feeling somewhat unsatisfying, and it kind of is, but I think that's really intentional. It's not a badly written ending, it's just, again, similarly to the Poppy War, it's not the ending I would want, but that's because I'm a person who enjoys a type of ending. I've realised I'm going to spoil it for you if I talk anymore. Let's just move on. I finished Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I had a really good time rereading this. I'd forgotten how much fun this book is. Like, grimoires, her last name is Scrivener, which I find just entertaining, hot magician, romance, fantasy. It's like fun. It reminds me a lot of the Paper Magician series, which I'm here for anything that reminds me of the Paper Magician series because that's one of the most comfort reading fantasy you can possibly have. It's really, really good. I would hugely recommend this. I didn't like Enchantment of Ravens, which was her first book, but I really, really liked this, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad it held up on a reread. That is everything that I read and listened to in the month of July. It was an up and down month in terms of reading. I had some moments where I thought, I'm never going to finish this TBR. I've switched completely to mood reading. I'm going to be left with 50 books left to read in August. I don't know why I thought the number would go up, but there we go. Towards the end of the month I really found some energy for reading. Yeah, I think it's a testament to being in the right mood to read. You can really get through some stuff, and I only read 4 books less than I read in a month, where I was deliberately attempting to read as much as possible. So thank you for joining me in this chatty wrap up. My tea is almost cold but also almost finished, which always feels like an achievement in a video where you talk a lot. Do go and watch my August TBR video to find out what I'll be reading next. There is a little bit of overlap with this one. I didn't believe in myself enough, but do go watch that. That will be linked somewhere. You can also follow me on all of my social media, because that's where I talk about things as they are happening. You can also you can comment below if you've read any of these. How was your reading month? Do you find this thing of you read a lot of books and then you don't read any? I know that seems really basic, but let me know about it. You can also subscribe. Oh, I need to put my tea down for this. You can also subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. And I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. Yeah, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna have my tea, and we're gonna go through everything I read. I've lost my phone now. This dress is too big. I genuinely, I had it a minute ago. I don't know where it's gone. Oh, it's there. But like very specific amnesia, where I remember that I have read the books but not when. Anyway, I just must have picked up a reread really early in the month. No, I remember what happened. It's a transcript of interviews. Spilled tea on myself. I've had to switch memory cards, which is a sign that I need to pick up the pace. It is much less longer, much less long, much shorter. That's what I'm looking for.